Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're having an honest and unscripted conversation about interning for the district attorney's office. If this is something that you've been wanting to do or thinking about, or even if a career in law is something that you are kind of considering, I would definitely recommend going and checking out if there's an internship for you, either in the government sector like with the district attorney or the public defender, or with a private firm that deals with anything from real estate law to trusts and funds, to private defenses. All of these different areas do have opportunities for you, whether you believe it or not. So for me, I always wanted to do criminal prosecution. I've talked about that before in previous videos. I'm very passionate about becoming a district attorney or an assistant U.S. attorney one day, and so I definitely wanted to try to get some experience under my belt that was going to be relevant for that field of work. So the obvious choice for me was to go ahead and try to find an internship with the district attorney's office. I didn't even know that this was an option that was possible before law school. Everywhere that I had looked for paid positions, at least, required law students. So you couldn't be in college and just really excited about going to law school or becoming an attorney one day. They in fact wanted you to be in your first or second year of law school before you even were applying to these kinds of jobs. Now, obviously, I'm not quite in law school yet, although we're gonna get there. But I definitely still felt like I had something to offer. So I was talking to my mom one day, and she mentioned to me that one of her police officer friends in the LA area had heard of college students interning for the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. This was very exciting to me. I don't live too far from LA, so I immediately went online and tried to figure out what in the world she was talking about. So what I did was the next December, actually, found the application online, spent about 3 hours filling it out, and then I sent it in a giant packet to the LA District Attorney's Office as they had directed me to. Although it wasn't for any kind of school credit or salary, I did consider an internship, and I was considered a law clerk for the district attorney's office in Los Angeles. So going forward, I did go into LA a few times to get my background check, so they had to scan my fingerprint, and then they did an interview with the district attorney that I would be working under, which was actually in Pomona. Now, Pomona, little known fact, is one of the crime capitals of California and actually the United States, much more than some other offices in Los Angeles, which is a renowned county for its crime and the busyness of the office. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office is actually the largest one in the United States. It has over 1,000 attorneys, I think, and I think Chicago and New York are actually under Los Angeles. So there were many, many offices and divisions that we could apply to and try to be a part of, but for me, Los Angeles traffic is not worth it. So I picked Pomona because it was actually the closest to where I live. It would be the least amount of commute. I actually didn't know until I even got there about how much crime was going on and how busy these attorneys were and how much my help was actually needed and appreciated. I dedicated my Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to going into the office and making myself as helpful as I possibly could to the attorneys doing the very important work there. Now, I was really fortunate to work with some incredible people, and I don't know that every single internship experience is like this. I hope that it is, but it was really positive for me because I had attorneys who were willing to stop what they were doing for a few minutes to explain to me what was going on, or answer any questions I had, or give me life advice. And they definitely still had many, many things for me to do, which I will get into in a second. But I just want to emphasize and thank those attorneys, if any of them ever happen to see this video, so much for their help and investment in me as a future attorney. It really meant the world. I'm so grateful for the time and energy that you sacrificed so that I could benefit. So what did I work on? Well, it was a wide range, everything from very dull, blacking out medical files that were 2,000 pages long to spending 9 hours clearing printing jams and printing out 4 full boxes for discovery for an attorney, to listening to jail calls for hours on end, listening for absolutely anything that had anything to do with the case at hand. I was transcribing videos that had little to no audio on them and you could not skip because Backup security cameras are not the highest on the technology list. So basically, I spent hours and hours and hours doing this investigative and evidence gathering work that attorneys are expected to do. This was not something I was expecting, actually. I mean, I knew I would have grunt work and I wasn't feeling like I was too good for it or that I was above that. I was very happy to help wherever I could, but I was very surprised at how much the attorneys were doing behind the scenes that literally any high schooler could do. I feel like that's not a really great way for an attorney who is licensed to practice, who's licensed to judge between who to charge and who to let go, who spent 7 years in school and hundreds of thousands of dollars in their education, should be doing. And it's not their fault, it's that they don't have anyone else to do it. At the end of the day, it comes down to the district attorney to do that work, to find the evidence they need, and then to build the case, prepare for it, and try it. It's absolutely ridiculous how much that they had to do and how willing they were to shove it onto me. I was very happy to help and so excited that I was getting to at least free up a little bit of their time so they could focus on the work that was really important and not just the red tape that enables that work to actually be effective. So besides the grunt work, I actually did get to work on some pretty cool projects, which was surprising to me how much I was actually able to do, especially because so many of the internships required you to be a law student and experienced in at least some kind of legal research. I really didn't expect to be given any kind of really meaningful work while I was there. I thought at best, well, maybe I can sit in and watch some trials, or potentially maybe transcribe some evidence, but I really didn't expect to be given policy shaping material for me to write, to hand out to the office, for me to be able to help with jury selection and be a determining factor in the fate of certain defendants. Now, obviously, I'm not licensed to practice law at this point, so I'm not ever speaking on the record, and I usually wasn't involving myself with the judges, the defendants, or the witnesses. So some of the really cool things that I did get the chance to do were to do some legal research projects, to file a new bench warrant system for the office, and also to be a very pivotal factor in a certain DUI trial. So as far as the legal research project went, what I was mainly focusing on was the emergency response restitution policy. Now that's a big phrase I knew nothing about a year ago, but essentially what emergency response restitution is, at least in California and the laws pertaining to the district that I was working for, it's when somebody made a choice that required emergency services such as an ambulance or a firefighter or police officers. The cost of those city employees being there and the resources of being there are recoverable costs from the defendant in that situation. So for example, if somebody went into a building that clearly said no trespassing, unsafe building, or anything like that, or if they were drunk driving and ran off the road into a ditch, the cost of recovering that car or recovering that person from the site, repairing any damages involved, all of that is something that that person is liable for. So emergency response restitution is essentially the money that the city is requiring of that person. Now, some of the policies were pretty vague. They were scattered around different laws. People had different ideas of them, and any kind of memo informing attorneys in Pomona or the LA district as a whole was pretty old and outdated. So I had the job of compiling all that information, trying to find it, see if any case law applied, and turning it into a report that was easy to understand and very quick to read. This project took me weeks to complete, and that might not sound very reasonable since it was only 2 pages, but I combed through so many cases, so many different laws, so many different memos that were anywhere from 5 to 15 years old, and then tried to turn it into a somewhat intelligent sounding memo that anyone could use if the occasion arose. The second project I was really excited to be able to work on was a bench warrant system. So essentially a bench warrant is when there is a warrant issued for somebody's arrest by a judge. Usually this is because a defendant did not show up to court. Some people have bench warrants out there just because they were driving on a suspended license, or because they ran a red light and decided that they weren't going to pay the ticket, or because they were supposed to come in for a trial on something like a domestic abuse and they didn't. There are a wide range of bench warrants out there, and it is absolutely shocking how many are unresolved. You know those filing cabinets that are like yay wide and maybe about 4 rows tall? Think that times 4 in width and then like 10 of those. That's how many bench warrants were out there that were just sitting there. Anywhere from a couple months to over 10 years, people had never shown up and the police had never caught. Now, the police do catch a lot of people. This is not me telling you that if you have a court appointment to not go, you're going to get away with it. Most people don't. But it does add up in a city like Pomona where crime is so rampant, anything from a speeding ticket to domestic abuse where the judge said that that person could be released. There are bench warrants out for people's arrests. And the consequences for having a bench warrant are so much worse than if you just turn yourself into the court in the first place. So if for whatever reason somebody's watching this video who thinks that they might have a bench warrant out for their arrest, go to court. So anyway, my job was to develop a better system for the bench warrants, especially the ones that needed to be dismissed. Now, a bench warrant is dismissed for basically 2 reasons. Either because somebody has come into court by their own volition or by being arrested, or because the case is so old and the district attorney says this is not worth the space in the drawer to continue holding on to this file for. So if maybe 10 years ago someone made a right turn without signaling and the police gave them a ticket that they never paid or showed up to court for, there's a bench warrant for that person's arrest. But honestly, we don't care anymore. 10 years later, that's not worth the time or energy to go and try to spend resources finding that person, or if they do come in, to figure out what in the world they're talking about and to build any kind of case on either side of why that should or should not result in consequences legally for that person. So what I did was I went through a few drawers and I found every single charge that we had a bench warrant out for, serious or not, recent or long ago. And what I did was I made some recommendations of things that should be dismissed, especially if they were over 5 years old, and things that we should definitely keep a hold onto. Now, this was very much exclusive to Pomona. It's up to those district attorneys in each city whether or not they're going to hang on to any, all, or only a few of the bench warrants in their office. If they decide to dismiss them, that goes through another process to give them to a judge who can officially dismiss those charges. All that to say, my system was very much going to be exclusive to Pomona and not to even the rest of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, certainly not to the rest of California and the United States. So, as my description says, please don't take this as any kind of legal advice or information about the legal system as a whole. I'm just telling you about my personal experience. But anyway, it was really cool to put together the system that I felt like really mattered, that was going to have a real impact in the way that the courts of Pomona were working, and that the judges and district attorneys could prioritize certain cases that they still needed to hold out resources for, even if it was just drawer space for a few more years. The third project I got to do a ton of work on was a particular DUI trial. Now, this is a whole nother video subject that I will definitely be sure to make, especially if you guys want it. Let me know in the comments below and subscribe so you don't miss out on it when I do drop it. But briefly, I just want you to know that it is possible to be very much involved in a trial even if you're not an attorney yet. For this particular trial, I actually was called as an impeachment witness, which was not something I was expecting. For those of you who don't know what an impeachment witness is, it is somebody who is called solely to impeach a witness. Now that means that you're proving that what a particular witness said was a lie, or you're offering evidence that it was not true. The unique thing about impeachment witnesses is that they do not have to be declared by an attorney on either side until the attorney is sure that they're going to call them. So I wasn't on any kind of witness list until literally the day before I was called, when a witness lied on the stand, and the attorney I was working with specifically said, okay, because you said that, we're going to call this witness who saw you doing the thing you just said you did not do. That whole trial was also one that I got to help with by procuring a transcript from the DMV, which was a previous hearing in the related trial. I was also able to create an impeachment guide. Now, as you can probably tell, this was a trial where the attorney was expecting many of the witnesses to lie, so much of the preparation was going into a previous hearing's transcript, finding exactly what they had said, marking down where it said that they said that under oath, so that if they said anything other than that one thing in the current trial, they would be able to point to that previous situation. I don't know that I explained that super well, and it's kind of hard without going into all of the details, but I do want you guys to know that it is very possible to be incredibly involved in a trial if that's what you're excited about and that's what you want to do. First, figure out what your district's policies are for clerking for the district attorney or the public defender. Next, send in that application and do your best to be in contact with the people that you will be directly working with. Third, once you're in the office, be ready and willing to help wherever they need you because they need you. And fourth, ask for what you want to do. The worst that happens is they say no. If you want to be more involved with the trials in the actual courtrooms, ask, and that's where they'll put you. If you want to figure out what the legal secretaries are doing because that's a career that potentially interests you, ask, and they'll definitely get you answering phones, plugging in information, looking up cases, and filing cases away for the attorneys to use. Or if you're more interested in the investigative side of it, ask for work transcribing evidence, listening to jail calls, watching jail visits. Anything like that is really going to give you a great insight into all of the things that district attorneys and public defenders are looking at on a daily basis to build their cases. Some of it will disgust you, some of it will freak you out, but hopefully most of it will get you excited about the legal profession just like it did for me. I already knew that I wanted to be a criminal prosecutor, but I've never been more sure of it than after having this internship experience, and I couldn't recommend it enough to anyone considering that as a profession. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to comment below if you have any questions about this particular experience or anything else that I haven't talked about in a video yet. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out my future videos every Monday, plus a couple bonus ones sprinkled in there. I've got about 3 in the works for you right now. And God bless until next time.